During your externship, our dear nation was plunged into a riotous and near chaotic situation, propelled, in my humble view, by purely political and other sinister considerations. I'm talking about the hashtag #EndBadGovernance protests. To appreciate where we are, it is necessary to look at the crisis from a historical point of view. His Excellency President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, GCFR, was sworn in as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on the 29th of May 2023. Before then, for a period of 8 years, his predecessor in office acted as President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for 8 years, that is from the year 2015 to 2023. His tenure could with humility be described as largely colorless, and at least an unmitigated political and economic disaster. Curiously, however, no bad governance protests took place during his tenure. President Tinubu did not also help matters. His first official engagement, his first official acts upon assumption of office was one, to remove the fuel or energy subsidy, which had the effect of skyrocketing the price of petroleum products 300% upwards, and two, he rebased the national currency, the naira, and caused it to float freely and find its altitude within the community of national and international currencies. The value of the naira vis-a-vis the US dollar fell from around 350 naira to a dollar to about today 1,650 naira to the US dollar. Consequent upon these precipitate actions, prices of goods, services, and other commodities rose astronomically, to the social and economic discomfiture of hapless Nigerians, to about 200 or 400% inflation rate. Consequently, bag of 50 kilo rice, which sold for a modest 18,000 naira as at May 2023, now sells for between 80,000 and 90,000 naira. Ditto, that is the same for commodities, especially pharmaceuticals. At this point in time, the nation has no one to blame but President Tinubu, who placed on us the last straw that broke the camel's back. Therefore, to this end, the critics of his administration, ranging from those who contested office with him and their political followers, to once pampered and privileged political untouchables in the country and their political base, to sundry criminals who were looking for an opportunity to expend their pent-up frustrations. All these motley groups found a unified case or cause in the same bandwagon, in the same end bad governance, hashtag #EndBadGovernance protests, which commenced from the 1st of August 2024 and technically supposed to last for 10 days, although it appears to have lost steam. I do not intend in this discourse to delve deeply into the remote and immediate causes of the present economic and political crisis, except insofar it will be relevant to drive the point being made here home, which is that it should be the role, which is what should be the role of a trained lawyer in times like this. But before going into that, it is necessary to examine the dynamics of a protest, which most legal practitioners seem to assume is a constitutional right, and indeed a fundamental human right, at their beck and call. Nothing can be further from the truth than this ignoble proposition. Firstly, Section 40 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria guarantees the right to peaceful assembly and association, which by extension guarantees the right to express one's dissent to governance, where it is perceived to be debilitating, detrimental, and inimical to the well-being and interests of the citizenry. For this right to be a protest exercisable within the ambit of Section 40 of the Constitution, it has to be peaceful and devoid of any riotous activities. This is based on the constitutional stipulation that one man's right ends where the rights of another man begins. Thus, a protest ceases to be a protest when protesters take a violent stance, where its participants light up bonfires on streets and roads, burn tires and other incendiary devices, force non-participants, innocent bystanders, helpless road users, and indeed the general public to identify with what is clearly now a riot by holding leaves, branches of trees, and other objects to force them to identify with their riotous protests. Unfortunately, this kind of riotous situation is usually a prelude to anarchy, and at that point, any responsible government must step in to the void and provide security for the enforcement of peace, law, and good order in the society. By way of post-mortem, the majority of analysts claim that the protests were hijacked by undesirable elements, looters, and other cadre of criminals, insurrectionists, and terrorists. All these categories, you can fit them. The true bomb in Borno, they say it killed 6 people. Those are terrorists. Insurrectionists carried flags, Russian flags, about in various cities in the countries. And so all this is backed up by empirical evidence. This is unfortunate, as what is expected of government is to roll out the full machinery of the law as laid out in our repertoire of legislations, such as the Penal Code, Criminal Code, Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, Anti-Terrorism legislation, the Public Order Act, and other legislations. I must pause here. We do not have a shortage of laws to take care of this kind of situation. It is intolerable for people to take advantage of a fundamental right to cause mayhem and crisis in the country, to stop law-abiding people from going to work, to block roads when pregnant women are being taken to the hospital to deliver, to stop people from looking for their daily bread, all because they have been paid to cause confusion so that there can be regime change. That is intolerable. If you want to change government, the youth are about 70% in this country. Form your party, agree on your candidate. Go and, if you can agree, cast your vote and vote the under 40 that you want to be president in this country. We will support you. But what cannot happen is for a teeming mass of people to come and tell the government of the day to flee out of the country, like the president of Bangladesh did, to take flight. It will not happen. It cannot happen in Nigeria. Rather than that happen, everybody will go his own separate way. So we must be careful the seeds of what we are sowing. Because if we sow the wind, you will reap the wild wind. So a word should be enough for the wise. Now, some have argued, and it is very curious, that waving flags of other nations, in this case the Russian flag, and calling for a coup d'etat against a democratic government is not treason. Innocuously, yeah, you understand if you are waving a Boy Scout flag. But waving the flag of a country notorious for warmongering, they invaded Ukraine, and interfering in other countries' internal affairs is a different kettle of fish entirely. If it is not treason, then I don't know what it is. In this context, all institutions must therefore be seen to work. In the United Kingdom, if you've been following the news, where they had of recent a form of interracial and other religious crisis. Government has by now, and is continuing, to prosecute hundreds of people in courts of law, and they have been sentenced, and they have sentenced the guilty ones to lengthy terms of imprisonment. I listened to the judge yesterday. He was telling one man, and he was ready to convict, that you were seen at the head of the mob, lighting bonfires. You held a kosh in your hand, intimidating people. You are going to prison for 18 months. If you do that in this country, there will be calls that it is a breach of human rights. When people campaigning for human rights don't even know the meaning of what human rights is. Now, if our government allows institutions to work, for courts to do its work, try. Now, if you are not guilty, you'll be discharged. If you are guilty, you'll be convicted and sent to lengthy terms of prisons. They should even build new prisons. Those prisons that are built was when we were 47 million in our population. No new prison has been added. Now we are 183 million. The number of criminals and mad people have increased among us. Definitely it's time to build at least 5 new prisons per state, so that we can keep those who don't want other people to, and then we train them there with how to learn to do welding, electrician. We won't teach them bomb making. We teach them basic training and the rest of them.